Well, if you like what you heard, that is Curtis Salgado off the record The Beautiful Lowdown, just came out on Alligator Records. And Curtis is playing at the Redstone Room inside the River Music Experience in downtown Davenport tomorrow night, Thursday. And guess what? Curtis Salgado on the MPW Digital TV Celebrity Hotline right now. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. How are you this morning?
Oh, I'm great, buddy. We're so excited to get you into Davenport at the Redstone Room. It's a really cool venue. Have you played there before?
No, the last time we played there, I think, was 2014 at a blues festival that was very nice, and it was outdoors in the street in the blocks.
Yeah, for sure.
A block party kind of thing.
Yep, and that's coming up in July. This show is Thursday night, 7:30. And Curtis, I like what you're doing. Before the show, you're doing like a workshop from 4 till 5, right?
I guess so. Yes. I mean, I said, yeah, sure, I'll do it. So I don't know what we're going to be working on. Ashtrays. I remember making ashtrays and chairs. Whatever anybody wants to talk about, I'd be happy to, or explain, or work.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's a very cool opportunity for your fans to do that. So I got a copy of the record, The Beautiful Lowdown, sent to me from our friends at Alligator Records. And Curtis, I've added quite a few songs off of this to our playlist because, buddy, it is great. I just want to say congratulations on that.
Thank you. You just made my day, if not my year. That's what you're after. I gotta be truthful with you. This is a competitive, and I have a competitive spirit, but I want it to be good. And then after you make it, is it going to be played? And how are people going to accept it? So it's just like, yes, when you tell me that, it's just like, you just made my morning. I just got up for this interview. So I'm like, that's what I want to hear. So
well,
thank you.
I tell you what, you're welcome. And it was, my thing is like, I've been in radio for almost a decade and at this station for 4 years where we have, I have 100% local control of the playlist and we play the blues. Actually, the blues, as far as categories of music, we have the most amount of songs in our blues category. So when I got the record, like I do with everything I receive, I popped it in and I listened to it in my car first, and holy moly, I was like, I got to play this. This is great.
Well, thank you. The blues and stuff, and blues radio, and I grew up on that stuff. I like music, and my genre is rhythm and blues. I'm basically, but it's all the same. So the record basically is singer-songwriter Americana, but really it's a rhythm and blues record. Okay. Everything that fits underneath the roof of rhythm and blues, including reggae. And so, which I really have shied away from since I first heard it in the 1970s and bought my first reggae record.
Sure.
Harmonica player said, ever heard he was also a drummer, so he was interested in. And he goes, you ever heard this stuff? I said, kinda. And he said, you need to get this and this. And he got me a Lee Scratch Perry, Bob Marley, and all the early 60s Bob Marley stuff before Bob Marley, the original stuff. And then the stuff, a guy named Big Youth. You'll see where I'm going with this. And
Curtis, what would you say if asked the current state of the blues in 2016? Where is it at? Because I feel like, in my opinion, that we have some extremely talented people, yourself included, that are still making great music. But from your perspective as an artist who has played for a while, and I mean that with all due respect, what's the current state of the blues?
You're right. I am old, and they want to keep radio stations and stuff. I'm sure you have an hour show or something like this, I'm glad that any radio station picks up an hour or two or three or has a blues show. So that's what's keeping the blues alive. It's, music is moved. The blues is the base and gospel is the base and the mothership of Western music. But, you can't, now everything has changed. There's so many different styles. The world has opened up. The world has opened up because of the internet. Now we're not, I just told you the story of Jamaica only getting Miami radio signals and New Orleans music signals. So they started hearing Fats Domino. Well, now we get a signal from everywhere. So there's all these influences coming in and into music. Like, for instance, India. We're getting music, Bollywood, I'll call it,
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting all these different Middle Eastern, influences and all sorts of different stuff. That's kind of exciting.
Oh, yeah.
For radio, for instance, is the state of the blues. It's always been somewhat, and I'll be blunt with you, kind of, it's pushed into this segment of a 3-hour, 1-hour radio show.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still popular. The blues will never die.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is that, it's going to have to change. And if it does change, it won't be called the blues because it's already set, like reinventing the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
If you reinvented the wheel, then, it's no longer a wheel.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if this is answering your question, but what really needs to be is like the kids, youngsters. I'm 62, so my demographic is kind of outside of it.
Sure.
You're playing me and whatever, but radio, it would be great if I had massive rotation across the United States. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Rotation across the United States on AAA radio stations.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't fit it in the demographic because radio wants to keep young people coming, which, of course, keeps feeding the machine. You know what I mean?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Right? So someone's going to have to come along that's going to have to, just really knock it out of the park or do something different, and it's going to have to be blues.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very complicated question. Now you got me stumbling. Here's the fact is, I'm the last generation that saw the blues masters. Anybody who's a baby boomer, no matter who they are, anybody who's a baby boomer that was born from 48 to whatever had the opportunity to see the great, black blues masters.
Sure.
And I'm one of them. I saw B.B. King when I was 17 years old and I was in high school.
Wow. And
B.B. was standing and arm's length from the microphone, and it was like he was one giant blue note. It was so incredible. And he just had 2 horns, an organ player kicking bass, and a drummer, Sonny Freeman. And, he had his hit out, which crossed him over. I saw Mississippi Fred McDowell. I saw Lightning Hopkins. I saw played on stage with Muddy Waters. I saw Howlin' Wolf. And they're not around anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And Johnny Shines and Willie Dixon. I saw all these bands, man. It was just like jaw-droppingly so heavy. And they're not around. The younger people that are playing the blues have not seen that stuff. And that's kind of sad,
Oh, yeah.
I'm afraid it might go away to where Dixieland is going. You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying.
But blues is so influential in American music and in Western music. Is so influential. I mean, you wouldn't have AC/DC or Led Zeppelin or heavy metal or any of this stuff if you didn't have the stock guitars of B.B. King or Robert Johnson or a Skip James or any of these. I could go on. So it's always going to be that influence. But the blues itself as a selling thing, unless somebody comes up with a really massive appeal of it, it's always going to be kind of subject back.
Yeah,
it's kind of like it's like making food. Mm-hmm. That's the basic roux,
right? Blues. That's a great way to describe it.
You need some grease and butter and flour. That's what the blues is. So that
might be the best analogy for the blues I've ever heard in my whole life. Yeah, but it's perfect. I mean, you're absolutely right. Blues is the base from which everything else has been able to grow. And here's the thing: if you're listening to this, you can see Curtis hit the stage Thursday at 7:30 at the Redstone Room. It's going to be an incredible show. I know that. I want to ask you this, Curtis, and it's just because it came up when I was reading through in your bio and your history, and you've probably been asked this question a million times, but were you the inspiration for Belushi's creation of the Blues Brothers? Is that fact or fiction?
No, that is a fact.
Wow.
I lived in Eugene, Oregon, and I met John Belushi in Eugene, Oregon when he was filming The Animal House.
Of course.
Now, John Belushi wasn't into the blues when I met him, and I didn't know who he was. He totally came up to me and said, I like what you're doing. I have a friend of mine who plays harmonica. He also plays, he said, harmonica. His name is Dan Aykroyd. And I just looked at him blank because I didn't know who he was. I didn't care. And I just got off the stage, and I was headed over to a group of girls. And I was stopped and goes, hey, Belushi wants to meet you, this person. And I just... So hi, and I'm like shaking his hand, hi. And then he said those words, and I went, okay, great. I'm thinking just what the world needs is another harmonica player. So he kind of goes on, and he says, I'm in town, I'm playing with this movie, I'm making a movie, here in town. I said, oh, yeah, my friend Robert, I think, he's doing something. He goes, yes, I saw Robert today, that's Robert Cray.
Oh, my gosh.
And, and I was living with his bass player, Richard Cousins,
right.
Richard and I had a bachelor pad, and we were living in Eugene, Oregon, and I said, I'm Robert. He goes, yeah, I saw Robert today. And then I said, okay, and I start kind of walking away, and he goes, well, it's really hard, whatever. And I'm talking to him, and he says, I like how you play, and this and that. And then he says, I'm with this show, it's kind of a variety show called Saturday Night Live. And I said, and I didn't know what it was because I worked on Saturdays.
Right.
I always work on Saturdays.
Exactly.
So I don't know who he was, and that's why we hit it off, and I'll get to the punchline here. So then he goes, well, I'm so grueling because I have to fly here to Eugene and then fly back to New York to practice, but I'm really excited to rehearse with the show, and but we're going to have this Ray Charles on our show. I go, what?
Right.
You're going to have Ray Charles? And the first thing out of my mouth, very excitedly, was, you got to ask Ray Charles about Guitar Slim. He goes, who's Guitar Slim? I said, you never heard of Guitar Slim? And then I went into, and you can tell I'm very passionate about this. I just went into this long diatribe about Guitar Slim. And to make this long story short, we made friends, and I started bringing him records. And I brought him a lot of records. I brought him all the, I gave him Hey Bartender by Floyd Dixon.
Wow.
I gave him the little bit that I had in the song by Willie Maben called I Don't Know. Originally by crippled Clarence Lofton, but I Don't Know by Willie Maben. I gave him the bit, are you going to make like a camel or walk a mile or make like Chesterfield and satisfy? And it depends on what you pack in regular or king size.
Oh my gosh.
So I whipped out my Jim Beam, and it was as hard as a Canadian club. So he goes, I can't use that. I mean, it's a long story. But yes, and here's the truth. Blues Brothers, I was the muse for John Belushi, and when he saw me, he got into what Dan Aykroyd was trying to get him into. That's Dan's idea. That's Dan's creation. Dan was already thinking about, we could do this skit, the Blues Brothers, and he was trying to get John into the blues.
Right.
John was into AC/DC and Blue Oyster Cult. I know because I saw the record on his turntable at the house he was staying at in Eugene. I would go over there and have dinner with his wife, John Belushi, Judy Jacqueline, and him. And they would invite me over, and I would bring him these records. And then he wanted to jam. So I brought him, he wanted to play Jailhouse Rock. I said, no, we're not going to jam that. That's kind of dorky. And then he said, how about Johnny Be Good? And I said, everybody and their dog does that. I got a song for you. It'd be perfect for you. And I brought him Hey Bartender by Floyd Dixon. And so basically, long story short again, they dedicated the album Briefcase Full of Blues to me, dedicated to Curtis Salgado. And Cab Calloway played a guy named Curtis in the movie.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh man, I love it. Well, listen, Curtis, the show is going to be great. It's I know that for a fact. And again, the new album, The Beautiful Lowdown, is wonderful. You got to pick it up if you're listening. But better yet, you can see Curtis live in concert Thursday night, 7:30 at the Redstone Room inside the River Music Experience, where the mission is all about continuing musical education. You're really going to love this place, Curtis. It's a wonderful place that wants to keep the story of music and the roots of rock and roll alive. And I definitely will see you at the show. And I thank you so much for the time, my friend.
Thank you so much. I mean, anything I can do to help. Thanks for pushing. That's for helping us out, because you're doing that.
Curtis, we'll see you on Thursday night, okay, buddy?
Yes. Are you going to be there?
Yes, sir. I'll be there.
Let's hang.
Deal. Take care, buddy.
You too. Bye.
Bye.